Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Veg Networking Canada. It is important for all of us to honor, acknowledge, and respect that many of us are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. Veg Networking Canada is a community where vegan plant-based companies connect and collaborate. Today, our special guest is a serial entrepreneur, international speaker, author, and most importantly, a mom of three world-shaking girls. She's a passionate researcher of the connection between the microbiome and a laundry list of illnesses. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce the CEO of Green Moustache Organic Cafes and the executive director of Sea to Sky Thrivers charity. Welcome, Nicolette Richer.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
We are so happy to have you, and we're going to start off with our famous first question, which is a personal one for most folks. Tell us a little bit more, and those listening, about your own personal vegan plant-based origin story.
Yeah, but we just came out with a documentary last year called Grounded in My Roots, and which really made me reflect on my true origin story. So it really takes me back to a little tiny town in Chiruzulu, Malawi, Africa. That's where I was born and raised for the very first part of my life. And everybody practices predominantly a vegan lifestyle because there's no land for raising animals. Really, they have to grow the thousands and thousands of pounds of plant-based whole foods to be able to survive the nutrient-dense foods. So that's my original origin story. But then I moved to Canada when I was young with my mom, and my dad's Canadian. And, we adopted the standard American diet. So pork chops and chicken and, meat probably few times a week, so maybe not the full standard American diet. And then, so I lived that way until my teens when I actually got very unhealthy. I started to develop nosebleeds and, heavy PMS and a lot of, the symptoms that most teenagers go through, a lot of fatigue. And so that's when I made my first switch back to a plant-based whole food diet. And then a few years later, in my early 20s, my best friend's dad was diagnosed with cancer and he was given 3 months to live. He was 72 years old at the time, huge meat eater, processed food eater, refined food eater, and he made the switch to a plant-based whole food diet and he reversed his stage 4 cancer and lived another 22 more years. So that's also part of my origin story. It all fits into that as well. And so he was not given any conventional treatment at all. And I'm a researcher. I actually just finished my PhD. And one of the pieces I couldn't ignore is like, how did this work? Nobody tells us that we can reverse advanced stage diseases like cancer and other chronic diseases with, a vegan diet. Definitely 25 years ago, this wasn't as well spread out throughout the internet as it is now. And so I dove into the research, and then that's when it was solid and sound for me. And then all my businesses stemmed from that vegan, plant-based whole food lifestyle.
Wow, all the way back to the origin stories of Africa. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is centered around, because Veg Networking Canada is all about entrepreneurs and business conversations. And so we're so happy to have you here because we talked about in the beginning in your introduction that you're a serial entrepreneur. And before we hit the record button, I think you said that there's 7 or more businesses. So the next question for you is, can you tell everybody listening about your entrepreneurial spark, where that started and how it unfolded to today?
Yeah, sure. It started in my teens. I was always thinking about starting businesses. I didn't know the first thing about starting a business, and I would jump around from different things. So I had, at one point I started in like unofficial nonprofit in my teens, and where I'd go raise money to be able to send school supplies to Africa. So I did that for a little bit. And then it was really after my friend's dad was diagnosed with cancer. And then he survived, and I knew I had to go study this. So then that's when people always say, what's your why? Well, that became my why. I left my work in government. I used to do environmental policy work in all levels in government. I quit my job and started my first real business, which was Richer Health Consulting. And that started because I got asked to teach other people how to reverse their chronic diseases using a vegan lifestyle. And the first clients came back to me in that first workshop. They healed. So I knew I had a business, and I started consulting. More and more people came and they said, can, I book you for private sessions or speaking? And it really just, went from there. And then they started asking me to make the food. So I started restaurants and, but started in my kitchen, right? Pressing cold pressed juices, making food, delivering it to people. And then I was, pregnant with my third child. So I couldn't really continue that much longer. So then I thought, let's start restaurants so I can have other people make the food. And I just managed the back end of the business. So that's what I did. And then people were asking to fly in from all over the world. Like, can I come and learn from you directly, hands on? So then we started a wellness center. So we bought a beautiful piece of land, started a wellness center, 12 beds. People would come from all over North America to learn. Many of them had never held a potato or a leek or a cabbage in their hand. They only knew, McCain's fries from the frozen section of the grocery store. So that was another business. But our next business after that I knew I had to launch was because of the fact that, I live and play on the beautiful, unceded, unsurrendered territories of the Squamish-Lillooet nations. And I started to notice we weren't serving certain populations with our products, with our services. And so we started a charity, a nonprofit organization, Sea to Sky Thrivers, and that was to work with the audiences that we weren't serving. So Indigenous communities, Indigenous folks, they weren't coming into our restaurant, which, the original plant-based food as well also comes from a lot of Indigenous communities. Like, a lot of people think they eat a lot of meat, but that's not true. Their diet is very much highly subsidized, subsidized, I guess is the right word, with, potatoes and squashes and wild potatoes that grow underneath our feet everywhere across Canada. And so many beautiful starchy high carb foods and nuts and seeds and berries and grasses and all the things that we mow over. So we started the charity to also serve youth. And so we started teaching in schools, and then to also serve physicians, because a lot of physicians are not taught about a vegan diet or a plant-based diet for the reversal of chronic diseases. And then I launched a speaking business, got hired to speak all over North America and China. And so that was awesome. So everything just grew from there. And, if anybody's ever published a book, that's a business on its own, because it requires an intense amount of marketing, and so then we franchised our restaurants. And people were asking us, like, could we build a restaurant in Green Moustache over here and over there? And so then we built out about 8 restaurants through a franchise company that we developed. So everything was just layered on top of the previous business, really because of the needs of our clients. And we just wanted to be able to serve them, because nobody was really doing this when we started doing this. There was a few companies, we got compared to companies like Smack and Tractor and, places, but, and not to say those aren't great companies, but they're not in the chronic disease reversal space. And that's the space that we're in. And so they do things a lot differently than we do, which to the untrained eye looks like it's healthy food. But it's disease causing food because of the way it's cooked and prepared. So we just kept filling those gaps that were really out there and that people were calling us to fill. And there's pros and cons to doing that, because you can't fill every gap. So if anybody's listening to this, please don't do what we did, like focus on your one specific niche area. That's a really good idea to do that. And be successful in like one of those. But we ended up, growing our company quite big and expanding into all those areas.
Wow, talk about like a natural parlay progression from one business to another business to another business. That's incredible. And the next question then might be a little bit challenging to answer, or you might stick to answering it from the lens that you mentioned about chronic disease reversal. And the next question for you is, what are some transformations, otherwise known as maybe trends, that you've spotted in your industry or industries?
Transformations across the whole industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that people now know that food is medicine is huge. Indigenous peoples from all over the world, doesn't matter what country they're from, what lands they live on and occupy, they have always known that food was medicine. It's your fuel, it's your community celebration tool, but really it's your medicine. And when I started doing this, I wasn't even allowed to use the word reverse. You couldn't say we reverse diseases through a plant-based whole food diet or a vegan diet. You couldn't say that. It wasn't legal. We'd get threats all the time from different, marketing agencies. Now, you couldn't, even today, I think you can maybe use the word cure. Now, I think there's so many people teaching this now, which is so great. When I started doing this, there were a handful of doctors. Now there's, basically this is finally being taught to medical doctors who want to get additional CE credit. So not in medical school. And so it's why, like, throughout starting all these businesses, I was also wrote my MCAT and did my pre-med sciences to go to med school. And I pulled the plug on that because not a single curriculum across North America, Ireland, the Philippines, all the places where I was looking at med schools offered nutrition at all. Like, and if they did, it was about 4 hours worth in 8 to 10 years of med school. So that's a huge transformation, just to see lots of doctors now teaching, reversal of diabetes, autoimmune disorders, lupus, heart disease. It's fantastic. And these doctors that are, there's some old school doctors. They're amazing. They've been teaching this for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. But now we see a lot of younger doctors now out now in the field. So I think that's the biggest transformation for me anyway, because it allows me to blast it out there to the world without any repercussions from different agencies.
Oh, that's such a breath of fresh air to hear. And the old quote, right? Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So
Yeah.
absolutely. So you've done a brilliant job thus far, kind of walking us through some of the different business models up to where we are today. And the next question is, where is usually it's one brand that we're talking about or one company, but question is about the future. So where is Nicolette going in the future? Maybe one brand or multiple brands, but tell us a little bit more about what the future has in store for you and what your leadership capabilities are involved in.
Yeah, so this is one of our campaigns that is an umbrella campaign for all our companies. When COVID hit, I was doing my PhD still. I had my 3 babies at home, who, I mean, they're not babies, they're teenagers, but felt like babies at home, homeschooling now during COVID. We're running all these businesses. It was too much. So and being fortunately the CEO of all the companies and the executive director of the charity, I pulled our boards together and I said, hey, listen, we need to do one thing only. What is it going to be? And we developed a campaign called 22 Million Strong. And 22 Million Strong is an overarching campaign where it's about getting me healthy while I get my clients healthy, because I spend a lot of time behind this computer, if you can imagine, coaching and teaching and running the businesses. And I wasn't healthy. I was healthy internally, like my lab results were amazing, but, I was out of shape. Like I wasn't moving my body. So I had to start doing that. And so I decided to, and the board agreed. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's help 22 million people across North America reverse their chronic diseases by 2030. And our kickoff PR campaign is me running and biking across Canada. And we created a documentary last year based on the tour across BC that I did, because we had to postpone the tour due to COVID, because we're meeting with a lot of Indigenous communities, and to really understand the barriers that BIPOC communities across Canada face in accessing clean, real food. So if you and I are all sitting here today, like there's a good chance that we all have a grocery store that we can buy our vegan products and our plant-based whole foods, where a lot of communities across Canada, like they're paying $90 for a pound of cherries or $10 for a banana. And so, trying to tell people in these communities, like, yeah, just eat fully plant-based or buy expensive vegan packaged products, like it doesn't exist in those communities and it's not affordable. So 22 Million Strong is that campaign to raise awareness, and reminders, bring back, the reminders of what Indigenous people have always known, is that traditional whole foods heal the body. It heals us physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And that's what my PhD is focused on, was what are those barriers that these communities face. So 22 Million Strong, you can train with me, learn how to, road bike, run long distances, and work out, the gym, and do it all on a vegan diet, and
Well,
be strong and resilient and have a tough body that is like, doesn't break down.
Well, that's an exciting future for sure. Absolutely. And best of luck on that cross Canada experience. That's Whew. Um, so in the beginning, we touched on, and you've touched on it a couple other times, Sea to Sky Thrivers. So you might dig a little bit deeper into that and or other charitable organizations, because the next question is centered around giving back. So you might frame it, what does Nicolette think giving back means, and or some of your other companies like Green Moustache and all of that. But yeah, what does giving back or charity look like and mean to you?
Yeah, part of the reason why we started the charity as well was to be able to serve communities that, couldn't access our products. Because, we have to charge, prices that make our business run. And sometimes those prices are not affordable for some. So with the charity, it allows us to go out and get access, funding from donors, from grants, from government bodies, and then be able to offset those costs and subsidize the cost for other individuals. So we have our nutrition and detox coaching certification program. That is for people who want to learn to be me. If you want to help somebody and teach them exactly what they need to do so that they're diabetes free in 30 days, do my program. Or so if they're suicidal today, in 2 days, that's the last thing they're doing about thinking about taking their life. Or if they're having panic attacks today, it'll be the end of their panic attacks within 12 hours if, switching to a plant-based diet, and the therapy that we teach. So the way we give back is our companies all work together with our charity. So we do fundraising through our charity, and then we're able to offer scholarships to anybody from a marginalized community. So if they're Black, Indigenous, a person of color, somebody with a disability, somebody who is a single parent, somebody LGBTQ community. So anybody who, where we really just want to close the equity gaps that exist for these communities. And we want to close the health disparity gaps, because anybody in those communities that I've talked about suffer from chronic disease rates that are 4 to 8 times higher than white communities. And that's because of the discrimination, the racism, the oppression that still exists today in the healthcare system, in our economic system, in our job system, and employment system. So that's how our organization gives back. So we have community members, from amazing humans, so smart, so intelligent, so wise, from Indigenous communities where they don't have an income because there's no jobs in their community. So we're able to offer full scholarships to certain individuals, partial scholarships to others. And then what this does is it ensures that knowledge that traditional whole foods as medicine, it heals, it reverses disease, and then they're able to be the coaches within their communities. And it includes a 3-month business accelerator program. So one of our students got a $4 million investment for his business. Another student, he now works with elders, and he has a 169-acre retreat center that works with men in their 20s that suffer from mental health conditions. So he's somebody who graduated through our program as well. And I can tell you more and more stories. Our students have built restaurants and so on and so on. So that's how we work together. And again, we had to fill that gap because there wasn't another charity across Canada or across the US that we could find that strictly works in chronic disease reversal using plant-based whole food as medicine. So yeah, that's how we give back to communities, is by creating jobs and helping people teach others to heal.
Powerful. And a little nugget to pull out of there, which is really rewarding, fulfilling, fascinating, is the passing on of knowledge, and making sure that doesn't go by the wayside and it continues to be passed down and passed down. That's incredible. So, Nicolette, amazing so far. Next question is centered around resources. Might be books, podcasts, apps on your phone, and you might answer this from like a leadership perspective, mindset, who knows. And feel free to touch a little bit more on Grounded in My Roots. That's a documentary. We've had other special guests mention documentaries in this section of resources. The purpose, of course, people are listening. They're wondering, what are some tangible resources that I can connect myself to that has worked for Nicolette that might work for me? So feel free.
Yeah. So like other people's resources or ours?
Either or, both.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about our own because I
Yeah,
think we built some pretty good resources.
sure.
So we have our book, which has been a bestseller for the last 4+ years. And that's our Eat Real to Heal book, which really explains if you really have no money and you can't afford any of our services, you can buy the book on Amazon or get the audio book, for a credit, whatever it costs, for Audible. So that will teach you everything you need to know to reverse your chronic disease. We have our documentary, Grounded in Our Roots, which won Best Health and Nutrition Film in last year. And it's being played on Unchained, the vegan website for, I'm sure you're all familiar with. That's a really great documentary. So if people want to sign up on our website, we do bi-weekly events where I teach a free workshop and then we screen the documentary together and then people can ask questions. And it's an amazing learning opportunity. We stay together for, 2, 3, 4 hours, however long people have questions. I just stay on to answer them. That's another great resource. Another great resource is our podcast. Like we've had a podcast that's in the top 3% of all plant-based whole food podcasts that are out there. And I had no idea. I just found that out, which I thought was really cool because I just do that for fun because I love interviewing people. And we just bring on some of the best plant-based whole food doctors, vegan doctors, specialists in the chronic disease reversal space, and clients that have fully reversed their chronic disease. So we like to showcase their stories and they teach you exactly, how they went about making their decision to change their lifestyle, the results that they got, how they got off all their medicines and canceled surgery and etc. So that's another great resource. And yeah, I mean, I would say those are the key ones to go to start changing your lifestyle.
Sounds that way. I don't think we caught it. What's the name of the podcast?
Eat Real to Heal.
Okay, great. So, and that's the name of the podcast and that's the name of the book as well.
Yeah. And it's the name of our online course. If anybody wants to do our online course, that comes with weekly group coaching for life. So every week you can show up just like this and I answer all your health questions. Because I know like 60, I think what the number is huge for entrepreneurs. It's like, I don't know, 60, 70% of entrepreneurs suffer from a chronic disease. I think maybe even higher. And we know a lot of vegans suffer from chronic diseases, and a lot of my clients are vegan. And because they're eating unhealthy vegan. So that's a huge part that we do with our business is getting people to eat real whole foods. So you can have a healthy vegan lifestyle that's really critical, reverse those autoimmune disorders and gut health issues and mental health issues. So Eat Real to Heal for everything. So that you'll be able to find everything through that.
Brilliant. Next question is centered around inspiration. Some people answer this from, certain companies or individuals, whether it's, your kids or what have you, as sources of inspiration. Other people answer it more sort of philosophically, like what does inspiration actually mean to them? So feel free to answer that however you want, but we are curious, what are sources of inspiration for Nicolette?
Wow, that is a big question because I feel like I should say it's my kids, but I love them. And of course they're my inspiration, but they're like, I've raised amazing girls that, they're so independent and they're awesome and they're so kind and caring. So, I'm not going to say my kids. My inspiration comes from everything, but truly from nature is where it comes from. Like I'm every single day, and I have been since I was a little girl. I remember sitting in our driveway, with my hands crossed on the cement wall, looking at pansies growing and being like, how did whoever created these pansies know to put a black line through the center of each petal and make it that vibrant and, purple color. And so, and then the soil, like, how does the soil work and what is soil? And then years later, discovering that when you hold soil in your hands, you're not holding dirt. You're holding like a living, breathing microbiome system that is so complex and is communicating every single day with, all like the rest of nature and all around us and ourselves and our own selves. So every single day, I'm just like in awe of Mother Nature and, call it creator, call it this beautiful globe that we live on. It is remarkable. And it's the ultimate nutrifier and detoxifier. And that's what we teach, right? And so everything we do to our planet, we do to ourselves. So if you pollute our planet, you're polluting our body. But if you heal the planet, nutrify the planet, fertilize the planet with like, nutrient dense, non-synthetic chemical fertilizers, but, the real type of, beautiful, healthy fertilizers, just like you have to do to our own body. I mean, it's incredible. Like, you don't have to look far from inspiration. And then, of course, I'm inspired by every other human on the planet that just wakes up every day and lives, because it's not an easy world to live in. And if you wake up every day and you just make that decision to say, you know what, it's one day and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do the best that I can with my business, with my family, as a parent, as a, volunteer, whatever it is. I'm so in awe of humans in general. So there's not one, everybody wants the one, Gandhi's great, Einstein's great, but so is every other human.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. It, for me, at least, maybe others listening, brings up the images that we've seen where you look at the human lung and then trees or rivers and lakes and then the veins or the brain and then it's just absolutely fascinating.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's teaching us everything we need to know in the robotics industry, in the health industry, in the economics, industry, in every industry, we actually get the answers from nature. It's so brilliant. So if anybody's eyes aren't opened up to that yet and you're looking for a source of inspiration, just go sit outside in your backyard or by a river and take it all in. It's all there.
The best things in life are free, as we've all heard before, are incredible.
They are.
So Nicolette, last question. It's centered around tips, lessons, wisdom, advice. Certain people like framing it as advice, some don't, and that's totally fine. You do a lot of coaching and leadership, so it comes naturally to you. But this is sort of the final question, and you're speaking to people who are already entrepreneurs, maybe one business or multiple. Maybe they're intrapreneurs looking at actually following their gut and their heart and moving into entrepreneurship. So you're speaking to a wide swath of folks, but kind of an open-ended question around tips, lessons, wisdom, or advice.
Entrepreneurial advice or health advice?
Either or, both. Take your pick.
Okay. Okay. So for the entrepreneur, it's really important. And I teach this because it's the lesson that I need to teach myself right now and have always needed to teach myself since, starting my businesses, is you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. So I see too many entrepreneurs, they're givers, like they start their business because they want autonomy, but they want to give, and which is a beautiful thing. But too many entrepreneurs are suffering. They're sick. They're depressed. They have gut health issues. They have anxiety, depression. And because I've been living such a clean eating way, I'm about one of my only friends that is not on any medications, that hasn't had to get surgery, and that is, healthy and have a lot of energy. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs turn to wine at night, like vegan, amazing wine at night, wake up with, a lot of caffeine and vegan energy drinks. And it breaks my heart, because if you're an entrepreneur and you're not putting your health first, then, you're not creating the healthiest, most amazing business that you create, whether it's a financially healthy business or one that you love. And it's really hard, because there's a concept called presenteeism, and presenteeism is a problem in the workplace. And it is a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs, because you spend more time worrying about your chronic disease and going to doctor's appointments and spending your money on all your medications. And so you're not actually present at work. So we need to do work together to make sure that entrepreneurs are fueling themselves right, fueling their brains right, so they can just eradicate all of these chronic conditions, the brain fog, everything. So that's my tip that I have for the entrepreneur. Like, if you haven't figured out your health yet, do it first and foremost, because your business will thrive as a result. Okay. The second part is around the health. And that's the tip I just want to give to everybody, that a lot of people ask me, like, can I eat this? Can I eat that? What should I eat? How much should I eat? And it has to be intuitive. And unfortunately, we've come through 100 years of convenience, thinking, a lot of marketing, a lot of false marketing, really bad marketing, telling us that we need certain ingredients when we don't, or certain supplements when we don't. And we need to get back to an intuitive way of eating. So the way you do that is, if you have to ask the question, okay, you got to stop, pause, look within. But the easiest way to get the answer is that if it has a label on it, just don't eat it. And that's the easiest piece of advice, that if you want to reverse your chronic disease and get your health back, just start eating foods with the labels on it. And I know there's like so many amazing, plant-based whole food vegan companies out there, but we really, as a vegan community, have to start differentiating between unhealthy vegan food and healthy vegan food. And I don't joke around with that. Some people will say, we're doing it for the planet, we're doing it for the animals. But you know what? We're not going to have an animal or planets. We're not going to have healthy animals if our brains are not healthy, if our bodies are not healthy, because we can't be out there advocating for anything while we're sick. And so it's really, really important. And if anybody out there is listening to this and they have one of those companies that you think you're doing really well because you've created a plant-based whole food product or vegan product, call me. Ask me how we can improve it. It's something that I do for businesses, is to say, how can we take your product that you mean so, your intention is amazing, it's so good behind it, but let's make it healthy for people so it doesn't create disease. It actually reverses disease. And I can help you do that through simple tweaks to your product or your service.
Wow. Oh, wow. So yeah, everybody listening, you heard it. So that wraps up the questions that we have for you, Nicolette, but we always like to leave the floor open here at the end. If there's anything that we missed, anything you want to double back on, any announcements that you have, anything like that, the floor is open for you, and then we'll let people know where they can find you on your websites and Instagram, and then we'll let you get on with your day.
Amazing. Yeah. So head over to thegreenmoustache.com. It's spelled the French way, moustache.com. So thegreenmoustache.com will take you to lots of our different programs. We have a lot going on. NicoletteRicher.com or NicoletteRicher.com is another good place to go. Groundedinmyroots.com. SeedSkyThrivers.com. I mean, yeah, any one of our websites will be great. Or you could just reach out to me if you are suffering from a chronic disease and want to get in touch. So Nicolette at richerhealth.ca is a great way to get in touch with us, ask your questions, let me know what you have going on, and we'll let you know if we can support you or not.
Well, wonderful. We can't sum up where to find you better than you just did yourself. So for everybody listening, you can follow and check out those different resource pages and get in touch with Nicolette. So everybody, this has been another episode of Veg Networking Canada, where we have incredible conversations with incredible entrepreneurs. Today was the CEO of Green Moustache Organic Cafes and the executive director of Sea to Sky Thrivers charity, and many other companies, as you heard throughout the conversation, Nicolette Richer or Richer. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you soon on another episode of Veg Networking Canada. But for now, take care. Bye for now.